Melton. Pauls. Thompson. Gurnett. Gray. Mr. President.
Please rise for the pledge of invocation by Councilmember Franklin Thompson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our prayer today is simple, one that we would pray for understanding, greater understanding, civility, and an increased ability to collaborate and work together. Thank you.
City Clerk certifies publication in Daily Record, the official newspaper of the City of Omaha, on August 22, 2014. Notice for a pre-council and regular City Council meetings August 26, 2014. A current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of the legislative chambers.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Omaha City Council. This meeting is conducted in public and by law may only address the topics listed on the published agenda. The Council will hear testimony but will not engage in debate of issues with the public at this meeting. During testimony, it's not appropriate to applaud or convey disapproval. These actions only detract from the formal decorum of the meeting. At this time, please turn off or mute any electronic devices.
Budget resolutions for the year 2015. The public hearing on the budget was held August 12, 2014. Item number 5, resolution that the recommended 2015 budget be revised by increasing property tax revenues in the general fund by $2,757,388 through increasing general fund levy by 1 cent and by decreasing appropriations in the general fund in library by $257,871, increasing police appropriations by $250,000, increasing public works appropriations by $1,085,793, and increasing other budgetary accounts, other appropriations by $1,163,724 in various organizations, library materials, police overtime, complete street active living manager, residential street rehab, surface restoration, Great Plains Black History Museum, and contingency reserve account. There's also an amendment of the whole requested by Councilmember Gray.
Thank you. Motion is needed to adopt. Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a few comments that I want to make first, and then I'll make a motion to then I'll make the motion to amend this particular document. It is no secret, and it has been no secret, that I've been opposed to this tax cut. We could have funded all of the operations that many of us have concerns about. The sustainability coordinator, we could have made sure that our libraries were continuing to be competitive. We would have provided some needed resources in some of our judgment to the police department, especially in the overtime budget. But more importantly, we need to address the significant problem of streets in our community. This tax cut bothers me because so few people are going to benefit for it. And let me give you an example of just my district. Less than 40% of the people in my district own their homes. So about 60% of them rent. So they're not going to get any benefit out of this tax cut at all. And for those who rent, if you think those who are going to be the beneficiaries of it, and many of this tax cut, and many of them are going to be multiple property owners, don't think for 1 minute that they're going to pass any of those savings on to you, because they're not. It is not going to happen. Across this city, the majority of people are not going to benefit at all. And of the ones that are going to benefit, their benefits are going to be so minuscule that it probably, in many instances, from people that I've talked to, say that it's not even worth it. But here we sit today with some needs in this city that continue to go unmet and need to be addressed. Most notably, the streets in the city. In my district, they're going to get the double whammy of not only not benefiting from this tax cut, but they're going to continue to ride down our roller coaster streets. We need to do something about that, and we need to have a plan in place. We can't continue to keep talking about we're 50 years behind on our street repairs. We need to put a plan in place that is going to benefit the people on the eastern half of this city where the roads are the most difficult to take care of, and in many instances, I've got constituents that have been waiting as long as 15 and in some cases 20 years. That ought to be unacceptable to all of us. But I understand reality here, and I understand that the votes are not here to address this tax cut. So I'm not going to dredge all this up and run us through this and go through a lot of changes here. What I simply will do, and let me say one other thing about tax policy. What I think the majority of people in this community, in this city, and in this state want is a change in tax policy. And my colleague, who is now on the city council, who used to be on the state legislature, had the courage to try and address tax policy, and I'm talking about Councilmember Pauls. When he was in the legislature, there were a number of different bills that he introduced in an effort to try and address tax policy so that all of us could benefit and not just a precious few with wealth. And it's unfortunate that none of that saw the light of day. I went down and testified on a number of occasions, wrote a number of letters in support of Councilmember Pauls when he was Senator Pauls. We need to talk about tax policy, and we need to talk about how we go about doing that so that everybody, or the majority of the people, benefit, not just the precious few with wealth. Having said those things, I recognize again that the votes are not here. I'm not going to try and push us through this, but I will make an amendment to my resolution, and that amendment will be to add the Great Plains Black Museum, continue to add the Great Plains Black Museum at $40,000 for exhibits. Now, one of the things that the Black Museum does every year with the baseball, with the College World Series, is they have an agreement with the museum in Kansas City that houses the Black Baseball Museum. And they bring artifacts and things up here every year, and literally thousands of people go through that exhibit. We ought to be supporting that. And so that's going to be my substitute, my amended motion. I will take out all of the recommendations that I had for police, for libraries, and others, and I will make a motion to support the Great Plains Black Museum through the contingent reserve account. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is it an amendment of the whole?
It's an amendment of the whole.
Thank you.
A second.
There's a motion and a second. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Gray, for your passion. I would be willing to vote yes for it if you roll it in as part of the package for 58, so that for proposition agenda number 58, if we rolled the 40,000 for the Black Museum into that, then I would be willing to vote for it as a package. Otherwise, I'd have to stay with my former position. But number 58 does accomplish what you're trying to get, and it also accomplishes the extra money for the roads in East Omaha.
I'll have to, if I could, Mr. President. I'll have to, at this point, I just want it to stand on its own. Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I would add that I commend Councilman Gray for, I think, identifying some important priorities, and I think for responding to what he heard from his constituents and in our public hearings on items we're talking about today, things like police and libraries and streets. And there are other items on the agenda here today that we'll talk about that address those same items that I think will be of interest as well. I respect his putting this on file and making his amendment of the whole just for the museum on this particular item. Mr. Pauls.
Thank you, Mr. President. Then I am to assume if this does go down, it can be brought back as an amendment to one or the other?
It could.
Okay.
You could potentially do that, yeah.
Okay. So to me, there's an option. But I also want to, just a little bit what you were talking about, and thank you for what you said. What concerns me, and I'm using the World Herald as my baseline or my data collector on this, Several weeks ago, they had an article in the paper that 29.1, or I would say 30% of the people in this Douglas County are under the threat of collectors because they're in debt between $5,000 and $6,000. I want you to think about that. Almost, I'm roughing it out, about a third of our population is under the pressure of apparently just paying bills. So that's another thing we ought to consider when we are talking about, even though the tax cut is minimal, but we do have a number of our constituents out there who are, in my estimation, fighting to stay alive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gray.
Yeah, again, Councilmember Pauls, I applaud your courage when you were in the legislature attempting to do this. But when I talk about the change in tax policy, and among the things you talked about that I think need to be considered as we move forward, we leave literally more than $3 billion in sales tax exemptions on the table every year. Every year. $3 billion this state leaves on the table. That should not go unaddressed by this legislature. The legislature has the authority to do it. The legislature ought to be doing it. We ought to be evening out how we structure our tax structure, and we need to restructure it in a way that is more beneficial to all of us in the city. And the thing about the tax cut, like I said, it's not going to benefit people in my district very much, if at all, and then they're going to get the double whammy of continuing to ride down our rickety streets. We need a plan for that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second of the amendment of the whole. Roll call.
Jerem?
Yes.
Melton?
No.
Pauls?
No.
Thompson?
No at this time.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President,
Yes.
the motion loses on a 4-3 vote. It requires 5 votes to pass.
I'm not sure that's correct. This was taking out a contingency.
Not with the amendment. Correction on that, with the amendment of the whole, it only takes 4 votes. So it's adopted on a 4-3 vote.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 6 is a resolution that the recommended 2015 budget be revised by increasing property tax revenues in the general fund by $692,105 through increasing the general fund levy by .251 cents and by increasing appropriations in the general fund in police by $676,137 and increasing wage adjustment appropriations by $9,047 and increasing county treasurer's appropriation by $6,291, 8 police officers and equipment. There are communications supporting.
Thank you, Mr. Gurnett.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's been planned all along. Anytime that the budget opportunity presents itself, and we were consistently low in the number of our police officers, I took the opportunity to try and increase that number, because we are horribly behind in the amount of officers per 1,000 people according to the Department of Justice. And I fully realize, to all my colleagues in the audience out there, both here and in TV land, that this budget does provide for additional officers. But it also provides an opportunity to put additional officers, add-ons, and in my particular case, I wasn't being greedy with this particular one. I saw the need, I heard the need, not only from our police chief, but from my colleagues in the western part of Omaha, of the increase in response times, the investigations that are going unsolved, and a few other things. Again, all solidified by our police chief. And I saw the opportunity to at least help to get more shoe leather on the street. You can have all the software you want. You can have all the neatest, latest equipment, whether it's acquired through law enforcement or federal agencies you want. It's shoe leather out there that gets things done. I can tell you from past experience. I had a short story from my other life to tell you, but I'll forego that. I don't think that I have the 5 votes that are needed for that, so I make a motion to place on file.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. I would also add on this one that I appreciate Councilman Gurnance identifying this issue. I think we all have said this is an important issue for the city and an important need. For the same reasons he decided, we're at a 10-year low. We just annexed a bunch of new areas, and we're 2 years out from a meaningful increase in our police staffing at this juncture under the current plans. So, but I'll save further remarks on that later, because similarly to the first item we had here, there's different ways to go about getting that achieved that we're proposing here. There's a motion and a second to be placed on file. Roll call.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 7 is a resolution that the recommended 2015 budget be revised by increasing appropriations in the general fund in library by $175,000 and by decreasing appropriations in the general fund in contingency reserve by $175,000 library materials.
Thank you. Mr. Jerem.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. This budget resolution really goes to the essence of where we stand as a community to access to literacy by those most vulnerable in our community and most susceptible to the downturns in the economy, the pressure from stabilized wages, where you have families trying the hardest to get by, where the library is their source of information, it's their source of getting access to materials and information. The library we have is unique in that we have a wonderful public-private partnership that depends upon substantial annual philanthropy to keep programming going for those who cannot afford it and who need it most, whether it's learning to speak English or summer programming or access to computers and things like that. What astounded me at our departmental briefings was a statement, a candid admission that in order to make this budget appropriation work as proposed, there had to be something that gave, so to speak, to keep hours open and the access to the facilities themselves the same as it has been for this year. But that meant that the materials budgeting would be decreased substantially. So this amendment would restore funding to library materials and would avert the up to 8-month delay in access to new materials that's anticipated if this doesn't pass. So I'd ask your support.
Thank you. Mr. Pauls.
Thank you, Mr. President. My life, I grew up in the Carnegie Library in my hometown, and in many ways that was a salvation. What I'd like to know, Gary, if I could have your attention, $175,000 for materials. Just roughly, what does that mean?
Gary Weston, Omaha Public Library. In planning for the 2015 budget, as it currently stands, it was a reduction of spending in our total materials of about $175,000 comparing 2014 to 2015. And the materials budget are the line items that we use for purchasing printed books, magazines, newspapers, as well as ebooks and other online resources. So, reduction of that amount is essentially the equivalent of just buying fewer materials. Average book price for a printed book is about $30 for the library. Average ebook about $70 to $75.
At our next committee meeting, when we meet with you under the direction of Councilperson Melton, could you just come up with some idea of what that would look like? I mean, not today, of course, but at our next committee meeting, so I could have a feel.
Sure. Do you, by what it looks like, do you mean as far as like volume?
Yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause I think on our estimates right now, what I can tell you is with a reduction of about 170,000 in material spending, it's about 8 to 10% fewer items. So when you look at sort of, books on shelves, e-books available through the website, it's about a 10% reduction, but we can certainly put together more specifics to give you an idea of volume.
Okay. I think that in conjunction with someone we're going to vote on a little later on, Diane Jeldon, who will be on hopefully on the library board. I know her personally, so this would be a good mix.
Great.
Thank you.
Second. Motion and a second. And I would add on that last point, I think that was good clarification there in the exchange with Mr. Pauls and the library director there, because there has been some confusion about the overall budget as it pertains to the library, and that was apparent a little bit in our public hearing too, that in fact what's being proposed is a reduction to the operating expense. I think it's also true the overall expense goes up, but that's the placeholder for what would be wages should a contract be negotiated that would cause that to occur or cause that overall budget to be flat. And even that's a placeholder at this point, but absent all that, and if those things come together, that's a personnel line item that cannot go into the materials budget that's been reduced by $327,000, as Mr. Wasson just noted, $171,000 of that to materials. So replacing it with $175,000 proposed brings it back to whole. And I think that's an expectation we should have when we're making libraries a priority, and especially when we're out at the same time hoping the private sector will participate in expanding our library opportunities throughout the community. They should have the expectation of us of at least maintaining a baseline of funding, not a reduction in funding when we do that. So I think this is an important statement in that regard, too. With that, there's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Jerem? Yes. Melton? No. Pauls?
Yes.
Thompson?
No.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
The resolution is adopted on a 5-2 vote. Item 8 is a resolution that the recommended 2015 budget be revised by increasing appropriations in the general fund in public works by $60,000 and by decreasing appropriations in the general fund in contingency reserve by $60,000, complete street active living manager position.
Thank you. Mr. Jerem.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. This position grows out of the growth in our community and the access to and use of alternative forms of transportation, whether they be mass transit, walking, biking, or wheelchair accessibility, what have you. In the belief that as urban communities grow and there's increased pressure in terms of environmental air quality, in terms of traffic, in terms of people who want to use other forms of transportation that are easier on the environment, healthier for them and their families, or by necessity because of physical disability, there's a movement in metropolitan areas. In fact, Omaha, we've learned, is kind of behind the curve in this regard in terms of other cities, whether those cities be classified as conservative in leadership or progressive in leadership. The country is replete with examples of communities in the urban environment who are going this way. And studies additionally show that the more people you have working in these things, the greater success that the community has in terms of an increase in use of alternative forms of transportation. We talked about Omaha's air quality, and it's hovering just below the environmental EPA's threshold for mandated improvements to clean the air. This community is struggling mightily with the costs associated with the Clean Water Act's mandate that we separate our sewer systems. This makes sense from a number of perspectives, but if leaving this world a little better off than, or no worse than you found it, or improving your health isn't a compelling reason to support this, I'd urge you to think about the potentially financial implications to the city if the EPA and the federal order comes down directing our city to clean up our air, which we're perilously close to facing at the present time. So this particular resolution places a person to start in the second half of 2015 in the Public Works Department. The timing is to coincide with a working group's presentation of an ordinance anticipated in the second quarter of 15, which will reflect the community's desires and input in terms of complete streets and active living. That's the formal name for what I was just talking about in these alternative forms of transportation, making the transportation environment accessible and safe for all forms of users. So that group will produce a work product, hopefully passed, in second quarter 15. Then we'd advertise and hire, and the funds would be available to have someone in Public Works. So I'm asked a couple questions. Why Public Works? Why not planning? And isn't there an open position, budgeted but unfilled position currently in planning that could take on this role at that time? And I would just say that it's my observation, and I say this not in any critical way, because I believe the people in Public Works are good people. I work with them on many projects. They're to be commended for their professionalism and in advocacy for all forms of transportation. But Public Works is where the rubber meets the road. It's where these decisions are made at the engineering table, and it's my belief and the belief from elsewhere that to be most effective, you have to have someone at that table in Public Works advocating for these sorts of issues. Now, that's not to say that planning doesn't have a role as well, because I just look at planning as though it's looking at where we should go from maybe 30,000 feet or 15,000 feet or even 5,000 feet. But actual implementation, to have benchmarks, to have measurable standards where things are basically assessed for how we're doing as a community and actually advocating on projects in the design stage, I think that's more appropriate in the Public Works. The beauty of this, colleagues, is that if this passes today, it's a place mark, bench holder, so to speak, or placeholder in Public Works in 2015 in the Traffic Engineering Division. If the working group produces an ordinance that reflects an alternative, if for some reason there's philanthropy that could fund this position in either one of those two contingencies, there's no mandate that Public Works actually has to hire for this position, and it also not mandated that we couldn't have it funded by, in whole or in part, by the private sector in terms of people stepping up to donate, as was the case in another iteration of this previously. So I would urge your support of this. It's a demonstration of the city's commitment to alternative forms of transportation and the other things that I discussed, and I would ask your support.
There's a motion and a second. Mr. Pauls.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman, I might agree with you. I like the concept, but I'm beyond the place of a placeholder. Come back another time with the working group showing a product, and you probably would have a better chance for my support. Thank you.
Thank you. No further lights. There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Jerem? Yes. Melton? Pauls?
No.
Thompson?
No.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Resolution is adopted on a 4-3 vote. Item 9 is a resolution that the recommended 2015 budget be revised by increasing appropriations in the Street and Highway Fund in Public Works by $100,000 and by decreasing appropriations in the Street and Highway Fund in Contingency Reserve by $100,000, alley maintenance.
Thank you. Mr. Jerem.
Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. This particular budget resolution amendment has grown out of a constituent demand. Constituents from the eastern part of the city who access their houses or their apartments or condos by use of an improved alley. And the alleys in our city, I was shocked to learn there is no separate budgetary line item for their maintenance, that it's all lumped into the street maintenance fund. And within street maintenance, it's prioritized in terms of the main streets, arterials, collectors, and it goes right down into the residentials. And the last one, as I see Mr. McIntyre here, our able-bodied street maintenance director. Alleys are last. And I'm not talking about the unimproved alleys. They're even below that. I'm talking about the ones that are actually concrete or asphalt that haven't seen maintenance in most cases, but in some cases very little maintenance for many, many, many years. So the thought was at least to have a conversation about the fact that we need to take a real serious look at whether we can fund such things, even in a modest way that this proposes. But in speaking with Ms. Melton previously before the council, she's persuaded me that her joint resolution in later agenda, I believe on 58, which would increase street maintenance funding, would be an opportunity to work together to achieve the same thing without creating a separate line item. So I'm confident we can do that. I'm confident that we can work with Mr. McIntyre to do that, and Mr. Stubbe, who is, and Mr. Fitzer, who have been very easy to work with in the past. And so I would make a motion to place this item on file.
Second.
Thank you. No further lights? Is there a motion and a second?
Yes.
Yes.
Roll call.
Jerem?
Yes.
Melton? Pauls? Thompson? Gurnett? Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
The resolution is placed on file on a 7-0 vote. We'll now go to the supplemental agenda, item number 58. Resolution that the recommended 2015 budget be revised by increasing property tax revenues through the certification of taxable value increase in the general fund by $809,653 and appropriations by $809,653, debt service fund revenue by $612,818 and appropriations by $6,128, judgment fund revenues by $18,265 and appropriations by $183, redevelopment fund revenues by $48,524 and appropriations by $485.
Thank you. Ms. Milton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. And this agenda item is something that, this stemmed from last week when we started talking about the roads in North Omaha that Councilman Gray brought up. And I know we even talked about it after council. I did think that the points you were making were very concerning to me. In fact, I even went and drove over the lunch hour. I went and drove north just to kind of look at some of the roads that you were talking about. And so last Thursday, when I received the letter from Mayor Stothert stating that we were getting an extra $800,000 in unexpected revenue from the property valuations, and that her recommendation was to spend $400,000 specifically for streets in North and South Omaha. I said, that's exactly right. That's exactly what we need to do. And you and I were just having that conversation. I think that many of the roads in North Omaha and some over in South Omaha, and I would agree even with Mr. Jerem after he explained some of the alleys and the condition of some of the alleys, I agree with that. We have annexed and in West Omaha, and although there are many roads in my district that still do need repairs, I think comparably speaking, we need to focus on your district and Mr. Gurnett's district at this point in time with this money. And so I guess I assume that this was one of your #1 priorities, and I believe it should be. And in doing that, I liked that Mayor Stothert was making it one of her #1 priorities, and I wanted to mirror that as well. And so when Councilman Thompson and Councilman Pauls and I put this resolution together, what our goal is to try and come up with a resolution that really was a compromise that did kind of gave back to everyone's district on this council. And I really do hope that this resolution will pass so that we have all $400,000 going to those road repairs in North Omaha, South Omaha, and in the alleys, and in taking some of those alleys and figuring out how to move them up to the top a little. And so I am asking for your support in that, but with that, I do think it's that the people in my district do find that it's very important to increase our contingency reserve fund and put that additional cash in there. So I guess what I'm hoping for is that we would pass this as requested by Mayor Stothert and take this $800,000, putting half into savings and half into spending, which is what I always tell my children they should do when they get money. I really do think that is the best way to deal with this $800,000, and my fear would be that if this doesn't pass, or that something else passes and is vetoed and we can't override the veto, my question initially was, well, where does this $800,000 go? It just goes in the general fund, but I don't believe we can spend it, and I would like to clarify that, Steve, if you could. Does that money just go in as a surplus, but it won't be a surplus until, is it 2016 or 2017?
Steve Curtis, City Finance. What would happen is revenues in the year of 15 would be collected to the tune of $800,000 or so more in the general fund. To the extent there are any other overages or underages, it would be attributed to that too, and then not available as a surplus to be rolled for 2 years, which would be 2017.
So essentially, this $800,000 would go into the general fund, but we can't use it.
Technically, yes. I mean, it is going to be in the total balancing, it is usable, but it's not going to have a particular appropriation attached to it, right?
And that's for 2 years, is that correct?
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to appropriate specifically against it for 2 years.
And nobody on this council would be able to come back next month or in 6 months and say, oh, you know what, we've changed our mind, we've now figured out how we want to use that $800,000.
That's correct, you would not.
And Steve, could you give me your opinion on on the importance of putting $400,000 into our contingency reserve?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that one?
Could you just give me what your opinion is on the importance of putting $400,000 and $2,000 into our contingency reserve?
Yes, one of the things that the mayor's, one of her stated objectives was to, in addition to try to reduce taxes where possible, shore up police and fire, one of our other objectives was to make sure that we've had an adequate reserve. And so having it in contingency leaves it in a position to be able to use in cases of shortfall in revenue or some other unforeseen event.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I was just wondering if I could call it Ms. Murphy out there. Carrie? Oh. There you are.
Carrie Murphy, Mayor's Office.
And Ms. Murphy, the only reason, one of the reasons I'm calling you up is this resolution mirrors the request from Mayor Stothert in a letter that she issued to Council last Thursday. Do you have any statements from the mayor in regards to this resolution?
Well, twofold, and I think you've already heard them both. Just as Steve said, one of her budget goals for 2015 was to increase the reserve. So learning last week that there would be $800,000 additional dollars, it just makes sense to take some of it and continue to increase that reserve. And after the discussion here at Council last week about specifically about the roads in Mr. Gray's district, it makes sense too to address the roads in North and South Omaha with that money. It was as simple as it was stated in her letter. Those were her two objectives, learning that there would be some increased revenue.
Well, and I really appreciate the statements that Councilman Gurnant made earlier, stating that we need more police and acknowledging that in West Omaha, our response times, people are in our district get somewhat frustrated by some of the unsolved investigations in regards to some of the burglaries that are going on, even in my neighborhood. In fact, my brother-in-law had his car stolen just Tuesday right out of his garage. And so, you know, it's even affected my own family. Do I anticipate that getting solved? I really don't. And there have been a number of break-ins. And so I do appreciate the fact that Councilman Gurnant not only cares about his own district, but is also thinking about the city as a whole. I was hoping that's what I was doing as well by specifically wanting to address some of South Omaha's roads. So I am pleased that this council was able to kind of come together and look at what the needs are for each other's districts. And so Councilman Gurnant makes a very good point about if we have extra money, why not add another 8 police officers? Because most of the new recruits go to or start in West Omaha. Is that correct?
Well, I think that'd be a better question for Chief Davis as to where the recruits will start.
And I think that may be Councilman Gurnant's experience. Is that right? I think you made the comment that some of the new recruits will actually go to West Omaha. Chief said that.
Chief said that.
Okay.
Put him where he wants.
We do have a graduating class tomorrow of police officers.
Thursday.
Is that right? Thursday?
Thursday night.
Is it 36?
I would be guessing at the actual number. I know that there was a small reduction in the number from where it started.
Okay. So what is the mayor's opinion in regards to adding additional police officers?
Well, the police budget allows for 21 additional officers in 2015, and both the mayor and the chief thinks that's the correct number. The 21 will bring the force up to the correct number in 2015.
And so we have our budget currently calls for 21.
21.
And that's where the mayor would like to see it remain?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I have no further questions, unless you have anything else that you wanted to say.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Curtis, the revenue that we have received as a result of the valuation increase in the property tax does not include the annexed properties. Is that right?
Steve Curtis, City Finance, that's correct.
What happens to once those dollars are determined? What is the next step?
If you remember from our prior conversations about annexation, that comes as its own. I wouldn't call it balanced because there was a net positive, but it comes as its own package. So it will come with not only those property tax valuations, and that was close to $1 billion, $932 million if I remember right. And so that money will come in. That's also going to fund then its debt requirements for those various SIDs. It'll fund the solid waste pickup and parks and some of the other expenses associated with that. So it's going to get added to the general fund.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all. That's the only question I have, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Jerem?
Yes.
Melton?
Yes.
Pauls?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
It's adopted on a 7-0 vote. Item 59 is a resolution that the recommended 2015 budget be revised by increasing appropriations in the general fund in police by $337,177 and wage adjustment by $4,524 and decreasing appropriations in contingency by $141,701 and street and traffic electrical service by $200,000 and decreasing appropriations in the street and highway fund in residential street rehab and surface restoration by $200,000 and increasing appropriations in street and traffic electrical services by $200,000.
Thank you. So this was the amendment that was referred to a little bit early on in our conversation that I think has the capability of providing a compromise on all these issues that we've discussed today and that the council has identified as priorities and that the public has identified as priorities in our public hearing, and also that the mayor has identified as priorities in her budget and otherwise. And so in my view, this amendment embodies these things. It adds police. It would add 8 police onto the regular recruit class scheduled anyway next year, having a more immediate impact, bringing that class from 21 up to 29. I think we all, as we discussed earlier, know we're at a 10-year low in our police force right now, and I think we all find that concerning. We just had a major annexation that I think is a factor also of concern. And we do have a plan we all support to build this up over time, but that's over 2 years away from having a meaningful impact in terms of a lot more bodies on the street. So this helps us get there and is a way to do that without impacting the tax cut, which I also support. This also does add to streets. It adds $200,000 to the residential resurfacing or major resurfacing, whichever is determined to be that need in public works. So it addresses that identified need, and I think rightfully so. Although one needs to point out, as we heard last week, that our unfunded infrastructure needs in the city is more like $500 million. So $200,000 is certainly welcome, but we must point out is very small compared to that overall number. This still adds to contingency. I think that's a worthwhile thing we're doing in this budget. In 2014, our contingency fund in the general fund was about $235,000. What's been approved today, and if this is approved today, raises that fund closer to $700,000, even closer to $800,000. So it is a nice improvement from 2014, and we are putting more money into contingency. And even outside of that, the more important fund when we talk about our cash reserves, and I talked a lot about this, I don't know, about a month ago, is in fact the cash reserve fund. This budget also adds $750,000 to that fund, which I think is important, and I commend the mayor for doing that. And that gets us closer to $6 million in that cash reserve fund, which is getting more to a comfort zone for me in terms of where we should be as a large entity. And then lastly, I referenced this. If this is approved, this also preserves the tax cut that's been proposed. Several of us have identified that as a top priority in this budget, and I think this obviously preserves that and keeps that in place. So the only new spending in this proposal is for police, and that's the $341,000 line item in this amendment that gets us closer to where we need to be. I don't think there's anybody who has or would make the argument that we shouldn't be doing that, or that we shouldn't be increasing our police force when we have that capability for public safety. I'll stop there for now. Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make a comment here. When we are in the process of going through this budget, it's very difficult, very tedious, and there's a lot of work that goes into it, and there are a lot of needs, and there are a significant number of unmet needs. Let me say at the outset, my support of some of these. I appreciate Ms. Melton and the efforts that she wanted to make, that she's making in terms of streets and other things with her amendment. I appreciate the Council President's amendment as well. But you all need to keep in mind that I'm the Lone Ranger here. I'm supporting these as a compromise, not because I'm convinced that it's the way to go. Again, I say this tax cut was ill-timed, but it is what it is. I just wanted people to know that this is a compromise. My favorite way to do this would have been to address the tax cut, but I understand how things are and how they work, and I understand that we have to figure out how we compromise and make this happen. And to me, this is the best way to make it happen at this point. But in the future, we really need to not only just talk about putting dollars aside for residential street resurfacing and repair, we need to have a plan in place. And I think we need to start talking about that the day after we make this vote today. We need to be talking about that. But I'll be supportive of this amendment or this resolution. But again, it's not my preference, as you know, but it's a compromise, and that's what we try to seek in government, working together to try and seek compromises to make things work to keep our city moving forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Jerem.
Thank you. I look at this particular budget resolution in terms of a mid-year hire in police as a way to improve the police chief and mayor's plan and to address serious issues that came up during the budget process. We learned during this process from the chief that there are times in the city presently when there's no car available to respond to a call presently. We learned that there's times when recently they've had to candidly admit we're at a 10-year low in staffing. We know from doing this that going to a 10-year low, there's been a greater time that it takes for what cars we do have available to respond to the calls that they get. It seems that there's not a week that goes by that I don't hear from a constituent or a read on the various social media pages of the neighborhoods in the district that I represent of crime after crime after crime and frustration of the people who live in the neighborhoods who want a greater police presence, feel that they don't have one, and we now know why. We're at a 10-year low. Using the chief's 2 per 1,000 number in terms of gauging how many staffing is adequate for a community, once the annexed areas are brought into the city, that would calculate to about 430-some thousand or 864 police. The plan before annexation was to get us to 825 and then 840. So this still won't be at the 864 number, but this is a way, as I see it, to address what I'm hearing from my constituents in terms of their desire that we address staffing. Believe it or not, as strained as people are in my district and yearning for greater police presence, we've learned that in the western part of the city, where they're spread even thinner with much bigger geographical areas to cover, there are times when you go to the southwest precinct, there's nobody there to greet you for the police, to take your reports or to hear your complaint or to deal with the community. So while the bulk of these officers that get sworn in Thursday evening will be going out west to start to address a serious shortfall there, I see 8 more officers as improving the plan that's been submitted and desperately needed. And that's why I support this, number one. 2, has been said, it does not negatively impact the tax cut. That's preserved. And it does so while increasing the contingency reserve funding, even with what we passed today. So to me, I think this is a moment for us all to join together to listen to the constituents that we represent in addressing a serious area. And that is our number 1 goal in government, is to protect and provide for the safety of our citizens. So that's why I support this.
Thank you. Mr. Pauls.
Thank you, Mr. President. Several weeks ago, I was at a meeting in the morning, and I had a police officer make this comment, which really surprised me. He said, our new cars are wearing out fast. And I thought to myself, why would they be wearing out fast? Because they had such large distance to go out west. And just to give you an idea, we had coffee with the cops, the Hy-Vee on approximately 50th and Center. And that isn't even at the eastern edge of the district. And we had coffee with the cops at 132nd at Brugger's, 132nd and Center. That's not even close to Elkhorn. So that tells me not only do we perhaps need more police officers, but also we ought to take a look at the number of precincts. I do think that it's time that we start looking at some of those things, and this may help with that. I'm committed to not having a tax increase, so as I see this, we do have a tax cut. As I said earlier, the Carnegie Library saved my little soul many years ago, so you can see where I'm going there. And I hear people from my district, as Mr. Jerem said, that there just aren't enough to go around. When I visited the Southwest Precinct when I first came on a year or so ago, I had the captain take me around and he showed me the screens and he said, okay, Rich, this is where this car is and this is this car. And I started counting up. There weren't as many cars up there as I thought there would be, and he said, well, I don't have people that time because they knew they're on legitimate vacation or they were sick. So I think even though the police are doing a great job, their hands are sort of tied a little bit. I know we have a new class coming in, which Thursday night, if you want to go, it's at the Orpheum. If you want to go see the graduation, I think it's at 7 o'clock. If you want to go see some of the new people who will be on our streets. But I see that is still something that we need to take a look at. Because I hear from the district that I represent, of course, we hear the typical things about streets and garbage collection, but police are always up there because of the frustration, as Councilperson Melton said, in their own family. Because people are frustrated that sometimes some of those, I don't want to call them a lesser crime, but the crime that goes down the list a little bit, it's hard to resolve that. But I did hear from our police chief that he is going to reorganize his department, so that may help out there. But as in my short tenure here, what I've seen is, and just because I tell you, I can still remember looking at that screen and seeing, oh, this is neat that you know where all the cars are. But I didn't see what I thought enough cars. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion approved.
Second. Ms. Melton.
I just wanted to clarify one thing. I think, is Libby Davis here?
Yes. Deputy Chief Libby Davis, Omaha Police Department.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify something because it was brought up that and I think been reported that we're at a 10-year low with the number of officers.
That's correct.
It was my understanding, though, that as of Thursday, we will be at full sworn strength. Am I correct, or am I not?
I believe we'll be at probably 799,
and
as opposed to 804.
As opposed to 804, and 804 is the goal.
That's the budgeted strength for this year. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So although we have 21 starting next year, you will still be able to fill those other spots. Are they left from retired officers that we just haven't filled their spots?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So although we're adding 21 next year, we'll probably add even more because we'll add the number of police officers that have retired.
That's correct. If you calculate in attrition, we estimate a class of 36 mid-year to get to the 825 number.
And I know Chief Schmatter spoke for quite some time in our public hearing, but has his opinion changed? What does he think about these resolutions? Because I have to agree with Councilman Jerem and Councilman Gurnant that public safety is extremely important. It's one of the things that we need to give to all of our constituents, no matter where they live.
Yes, Chief Schmatter and I spoke this morning, and he wanted to reiterate the idea that we can manage just fine with 825, and hopefully we will get the COPS grant and be able to hire an additional 15 in 2015 with the grant. So he feels very comfortable working off of that 825 number for 2015. And I know it may seem at first blush that we're not thinking straight by saying that, but nothing could be further from the truth. We've put quite a bit of time and effort into creating a strategy and a plan to manage the additional officers. And again, by reorganizing the Criminal Investigation Bureau, he feels very confident that we can handle 825 with the intent of getting the COPS grant and then moving up to 840 at the end of 2015.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing further, Mr. President.
Thank you, and I certainly respect the Chief's comments and your comments as well, and I respect him for operating within the confines of a budget he has. All departments have to do that. Mm-hmm. But I would also note in our Public Safety Committee meetings that, and publicly within the last year, has identified the goal of 860 for a community our size is what we should be operating with, when right now we're below we're about 780, and with this new class, just getting to 800, that's a big hill to climb. I think we need to start climbing it. Thank you. No further lights? Roll call.
Jerem?
Yes.
Melton?
No.
Pauls?
Yes.
Thompson?
No.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
The resolution is adopted on a 5-2 vote. Item 60, a resolution that the recommended 2015 budget be revised by decreasing appropriations in other budgetary accounts other by $50,000 and increasing appropriations in planning by $50,000.
Thank you, Mr. Jerem.
Yes, colleagues, this budgetary resolution would restore to the mayor's proposed 2015 budget funding that this council, by amendment, put in the 2014 budget. Just a brief history, the city had its own internal sustainability coordinator position. That position was allowed to lapse and not be funded in our current year's budget that was adopted. But by amendment, we thought as a policy that it was important that the sustainability goals at least be available through private contracting and consulting for this year. In asking the planning department whether those funds have been appropriated yet, they have not. There are some ideas how that may be able to tie into some of the working group things that we're working on now or other things before the end of the year. We're hopeful that they can be. But this would insert in the 2015 budget the private contracting consulting appropriation that we did for this year that was not proposed to be renewed. I think these things are important. I know that people in my district share with me their belief in them. In fact, many people that work in the field happen to live in my district, it seems, and again, this is not something that's new or radical. The urban environments, cities throughout the country that are committed to these things reap the benefits from them. And whether they're progressive or so-called conservative cities, it seems that more and more cities are adopting these sorts of programming. And this was, I think, a compromise last year that I would urge your support to renew this year for 2015.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Jerem?
Yes.
Melton?
No.
Pauls? Thompson?
No.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
The resolution is adopted on a 4-3 vote. We'll go back to item number 10. Is a resolution to raise revenue estimates and revise the expenditures of the 2015 budget because of areas annexed by the City of Omaha September 3, 2014.
Thank you. Mr. Curtis, just a question for you as we proceed on number 10 here. So this is a bit of a complicated item that I think boils down to a shift of paperwork or certainly a shift of levies. So I think it's worth just taking a second to explain what it does. It does shift some of the general fund levy to our debt levy because of our concerns about our debt levy in upcoming years being very close to not enough. So it helps with that situation, but does not change the overall tax rate. In fact, it assumes the tax rate we're about to adopt here that includes the property tax cut in this budget, right?
Steve Curtis, City Finance. That's correct. There's a number, there's quite a bit of restaurant taxes, sales tax that comes with this annexation. So to your point, the revenue in total will be fine. It's just technically in the wrong buckets to make our debt service. So, and the new funding sources are perpetual, just like the property tax, perpetual until this body or the mayor does something about it.
And the real concern on the debt levy side of things is the 2016-2017 time frame, right?
That's correct. Around 16, 17, 18, right around there, it gets extremely tight.
Therefore, the concerns we've all expressed about our debt. So this helps with that situation, and if adopted, you feel gets us comfortably past that crunch point.
Yeah, we try to keep a $3 million cushion in there, and we'll be well into that if we're, so anything unforeseen, we could have an issue.
And the only other question I had about it is, the only other implication it could have is if you're shifting general fund levy to the debt levy, you are giving up some funding authority in your general fund portion of the budget, which is everything we just discussed in terms of the needs we're trying to address and work through. So I guess that question would be, does that cause you any concern in the future, not for 15 necessarily, but in future budgets, if we are giving up that portion of our general fund levy, do you have concern that that might cause a situation or not enough funding in our general fund going forward at this point?
Not related to this particular move, only because kind of like we've talked about before, the sales and restaurant tax are also deemed to be perpetual until this body or the mayor does something to change those. So those revenue streams would remain in place.
And so in your view, and from those remarks, the restaurant tax and the sales tax are more than enough to make up for that possibility?
Yeah, at this point, that is correct, yes.
Okay. Thank you. There's no further lights? Roll call.
Jerem. Yes. Melton. Pauls.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gurnett. Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Resolution's adopted 7-0. Item 11, resolution that upon affirmative vote by more than 75% of the City Council, the budgeted restricted funds for fiscal year 2015 shall be increased by an additional 1% as provided by Nebraska statute.
Second.
Roll call.
Jerem. Yes. Melton. Yes. Pauls.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gurnett. Yes. Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 12 is a resolution that the budget of the City of Omaha for the year 2015, as submitted to the City Council by the Mayor and the Finance Director of the City of Omaha, together with revisions evidenced by resolutions attached hereto and adopted by the City Council at the council meeting of August 26, 2014, be and the same is hereby adopted as the budget of the City of Omaha for the year 2015.
Motion approved.
There's a motion, a second. This is our final budget vote today for 2015, so I would just say I commend my colleagues for the work they did on the budget this year and all the hearings we had and public input we had as well. We certainly took that into account in what was addressed today and what was approved today, and I think the City Council did its job, which is to review the proposed budget in depth and suggest those kind of changes and identify areas of priority like we did today with police and library funding and street work. It does maintain the tax cut, which I support, and makes a good budget better. So hopefully the amendments that are approved today represent a coming together of interests and a good compromise that everyone can support in the spirit of working together. Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just very briefly, especially for the individuals in and around my district and all over this city who have been working hard, because it would be inappropriate and it would be wrong to say that everybody in this city is making an effort to address the lack of investment and a number of other things that have occurred in my district. So people all across this city have done that, and more specifically those who are in my district. There's a lot of work to do, but if we continue to plan and organize, there are a couple of things we need to get accomplished. We need to get accomplished what we want to do for 24th and Lake Street, and that needs to be more of a cohesive plan that is inclusive of the community, the city, the state, and others involved in making that corner what it ought to be and what it was in the past. In addition to that, we've got a lot of work to do on our street repair, and we've got to come up with a plan for that. This that we did today was compromise legislation that we engage in all the time. And I, too, want to commend this council and the work that we did. Again, it was tedious, it was difficult, and in some instances full of political landmines, but I think we all knew the job was dangerous when we took it. But keep in mind that as far as 24th Street is concerned, we need to address that in a more cohesive way. And I intend to roll up my sleeves and work with people in the community to get that done. In addition, we have to do streets in the eastern part of the city. We've got to repair our streets. People have been waiting 15 and 20 years. That ought to be unacceptable to all of us. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Gurnett.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to continue on those note of thanks, I'd like to thank, and I think the council probably would too, is council staff did a great job keeping up with all of these changes and making sure that the paperwork and our clerk staff as well being involved in this entire process. So my hat's off to them as well.
Agreed. And Jim, after the meeting today, you can take the rest of the day off. There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Jerem. Melton. Pauls.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gurnett. Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
The resolution is adopted on a 7-0 vote. Resolution Ray 2015-2020 Capital Improvement Program. Item 13 is a resolution that the 2015-2020 Capital Improvement Program be approved. A is Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Motion approved.
Second. Roll call.
Jerem. Melton.
I'm sorry.
Public hearing.
Public hearing.
Is a public hearing required on this? Public hearing number 13 is today. We've been considering this at the same time as the budget, and we've had so many public hearings on the budget, we forgot that technically there has to be a public hearing on number 13 too, which is the 2015-2020 Capital Improvement Program. So with that, public hearing on number 13 is today. Any proponents?
My name is Ernest J. Wesolowski, W-E-S-O-L-O-W-S-K-I. I live at 13312 Westwood Lane, right west of the Miller's Library. For 10 years ago, I attended a public hearing on a proposed street widening project, West Center Road, from the interstate to Highway 275. The part from 148th to Highway 275 has been completed. I would surely like to see put on a wish list, and that's a wish list is everything more than 2 years from now. The first year and second year more or less lined up, but anything after that just jiggle around. I would like to see the part from 114th to 121st put on that list and do it in the next 6 years. I don't think that is a lot of traffic congestion. We want to add one more lane to the two that we already have each way. I also want to thank one person individually that has a heck of a hard job, wintertime and summertime, and that's Bob Scooby. He really does a good job. I know a lot of people complain about the bad things, but I want to tell you, he's doing the good things. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And Bob, maybe after the meeting too, you can take the rest of the day off.
Bob, don't get your head too big, though, man. We still got to live with you.
Don't you and Jim go out the door at the same time.
Are there any other proponents today? Mr. Barney.
Good afternoon, Council. Willie Barney, 12333 Cumming Street. I have had a chance to look at the 2014-2019 CIP and then recently looked through the recommended plans for the 2015 to 2020. I have at various times on an individual basis asked the Council, and I want to make the request formal, that this CIP is mapped in advance of this hearing, mapped visually so people can see where the dollars are being allocated in the city by department. And the reason I say that is in May, we, as a city, approved a $47 million bond. And the map that I see is that 98% of that money went west of 680. 98%. And I'm encouraged in that this council is putting $400,000 into east, north, and south roads. I see a no.
No, it's
200,000.
Okay, so 47 million just went west of 680, and 200,000 just went east of wherever it's going to go. I would ask the council to take a real hard look at how far is $200,000 going to go in North and South Omaha. I would ask this council to look at by category where the spending is going in this city. You're doing a tax cut, I understand that. But with the needs that we have presented to this council for North and South Omaha continuously, I'm encouraged by what I've seen with some of the steps that you've taken, but we all know it's not close to being enough. I hope that this council understands a sense of urgency to deal with these issues that for decades have gone neglected. We can, again, I'm encouraged by some steps that you've made, but I hope that you sincerely understand the sense of urgency and how dollars are being spent in this city, and the needs that are in this city, and the plans that have been developed over years. We spent 3 years developing a plan that you approved unanimously for 24th and Lake, and 30th and Parker, and 24th and Cumming. You approved unanimously. It's not lack of planning. We have spent better parts of 8 years presenting to this council and to the mayor. 8 years. Look at that bond that was approved. $47 million. And I'm yet to see, but it looks like 45 to 46 million of it went west of 680. But then when we come to investing in these streets that residents are begging to be fixed, houses that should have been demolished 20, 30 years ago, we can't find the money to do that. As Councilman Gray said, it's unacceptable. It's absolutely unacceptable that we're still at this point. I appreciate the work that the mayor has done. She's an outstanding partner on a number of these things. Many of you are outstanding partners on a number of these issues. But I just have to stand and say, let's take a real hard look at this CIP over the next 5 years. What does it really look like? The industrial park, there wasn't money allocated, but it wasn't a CIP, but $13 million went away. And it wasn't replaced with anything in North Omaha or East Omaha. It just simply went away off the CIP plan. We have a lot of work to do. And as a community member, as a resident, as a person that has worked with each of you individually and hopefully collectively, I'm hopeful and prayerful that over the next 6 months that we will roll up our sleeves and figure out how we finally invest in what we all know needs to happen in North and South Omaha. We absolutely have to, across division, across geography, across race, is figure out that there is no way in the world in 2014, 2015, 2016 that people in this community should live in fear. We've shown you the map of where the homicides occur, where the shootings occur. We've shown you the number of homes that absolutely, there's 800, we know they need to be demolished or rehabbed or something. We have roads in North and South Omaha, as Councilman Gray identified, that $200,000 isn't going to get close to touching. I didn't plan to say anything today, but as a citizen of this community, I'm hopeful that we can have a real hard discussion and look at what we need to do as a city to move this forward. There are people living in conditions that there should be absolutely unacceptable to us as residents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Other proponents today?
Carl Tyler, Omaha. I came here today to support, had really written a speech for the support of the Black Museum. But as a longtime resident of Omaha, a real active community developer to helping develop my community, a past board member of Metro Tech Community College, to help develop 24th and Lake Street back in the day. We are the people who put the Blue Line Center where it is. And I see, like I said, I've been gone for 18 years. And I come back to my home, and I see the condition of my community, and it really hurts. We're the brothers and sisters who developed the Blue Line Center. at 24th and Lake Street. We also the brothers and sisters who developed the Technology Center at 24th and Lake Street. And it's, like I said, if I had read my speech, I would have talked about OIC, that Reverend Dr. Sullivan did. Sometimes it's a little hard for me to come here because people get me wrong. They think I'm arrogant and everything. That is not it. I am sickly hurt to see the condition of my community. We started something there back in the day, and it makes me feel like, as you hear people saying now about Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and other black economic development areas, how they were destroyed. I sometimes see that right here in my community. And again, Brother Barney, I thank you for your work, man. Just a couple of things. I'm just not going to try it. As a matter of fact, taking the Black Museum out of our community, which Ms. Bertha Calloway worked so hard to develop with. And I was going through it, and I saw here where at one time the Blue Line Center was a place that they used temporarily for the Black Museum. How come it can't be used now? Well, we got to take it somewhere else. We developed that. Miss Holloway put a lot of time into that. And Ben, I thank you, brother. But you know, like you said, I come home to go to work, man. It's unacceptable for us to have to live in a community like this. And I heard you talking about the police. I ain't got no problem with the police in my community. I see them every day. Not just one, but a whole bunch of them. You know, I was going to say something else, but I'm just going to sit down because, you know, we always say those people in North Omaha. I'm one of those people. I know my area has been dehumanized and criminalized, that you can come and do anything you want. I almost see that our community, like I said, is like Black Wall Street back in the day. And some of you ought to check that out. You know, so Willie, those of you people who are really helping, Ben, I'm home, man. We got a lot of work to do. We have put money in North Omaha. Another thing about North Omaha, they use the statistic to bring money into our area, but then they take it and use it other places. We are a substitute for a lot of big businesses here. You know, federal government, big businesses get federal dollars all the time. They use our community to bring that money in, then they allocate it to other areas. You know, subsidy is just another name for welfare, for the super rich, the rich, and the corporations. We got corporations in our community. You know, and I'm hearing this budget, and I don't understand all of it. But the fact of it is, we bring the money in. Back in the day, Ben, they used our area to bring in $5.5 million for 15 years. We got involved in the 7th year, and that's how we started changing things. The money that you see down here, I keep saying it, that bring up the riverfront, up to the library, that's our money. But we wasn't organized. We created 14 neighborhood groups, and now they're all gone. I only select one. I have a plan that we did in 1968, but I left it in Mississippi, you know. And traveling, Ben, I get to see. I know what it's like. I know what our people have produced, like our Mrs. Calloway, and I see other folks want to take what we produce in our community and take it to other places so they can get rich off of it. How come we can't put it back in North Omaha? How come we can't develop the Black Museum right there? You know, so it's hard, but like I said, I had came here. Let me just say one thing. I'm a man of God. And in Proverbs 31, verse 8 and 9, it says, defend those who cannot help themselves. Speak up for the poor and needy and see that they get justice. In the Holy Quran, Surah 76, verse 8 and 9, feed the needy, the orphans, the prisoners of God for God's love, saying, we feed you for the sake of God only. We wish no reward or thanks from anyone. That's where I'm at. I believe in the poor in our community. And man, we got work to do. And those of you who need some of those policemen, you don't have to redo the budget. Take some of them out of our community and put them out there. We're not criminals. We are human beings. And we've worked hard for things. And all the work that we did back then, we come home and you're still destroying our community. Willie, thank you, man.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just Finally, just based on some of the comments that I've heard from people who are my constituents and in some instances, my friends, this council has, I got to defend this council because we've done a lot to address, in some ways very quiet. The Allegiant Creighton Center is putting a new development in on 24th and Cummings Street. Councilmember Jerem and I were heavily involved in making sure that that went right in terms of hiring, in terms of placement, in terms of a number of other things. So behind the scenes, various members of this council have worked tirelessly to address specific issues in North Omaha, and we've done that. It's just that the lack of investment for nearly 40 years is going to take some time for us to catch up with. But we got to catch up. And let me say just one other thing. Some of us in the district need to step up. We need to up our game. And one of the ways we do that is by voting. It is disrespectful for us to only have 7,000 or 8,000 votes in a city council election and a mayor election. It is unacceptable. We have a hammer that we can use, and we fail to use it. We're going to continue. I'm confident that this council is going, and this mayor is going to continue to move forward and address many of the issues in this total community, and more specifically where investment has been lacking for decades. We have a lot of work to do, but if we're focused and if we're addressing the right and appropriate things in the right way, changing in tax policy, changes in street policy, a really concerted effort to bring business and others into the mix so that we can address the needs of 24th and Lake Street more closely. To build on what we started with the Black Museum and others, I think there are things that we still have to do, but this council and the work that we've done, though investment still needs to occur, this council has been about the business of getting that done, and we just need to continue to do it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
There's a motion.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Jerem? Yes. Melton? Yes. Pauls? Yes. Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett? Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Resolution's adopted on a 7-0 vote. Resolutions rate preliminary plats. 14 is a resolution to approve the preliminary plat entitled Rivers Edge Park located northwest of 230th Street and West Maple Road with a request for a waiver of section 5384 lots, 5393 street surfacing, 5395 sanitary sewer, 5397 water mains, and 539 sidewalks.
Public hearing on number 14 is today. Proponents, please. Mr.
Thank you. Mr. President, members of the Omaha City Council, my name is Jim Lang. I'm an attorney here in Omaha at 11718 Nicholas Street. I'm here today to request approval of the preliminary plat for Rivers Edge Park. This is a one-lot subdivision located in the area of northwest of 230th and West Maple Road. This would permit the development of a campground in this particular area. The applicant and developer of this particular project is Frank Creechy. As you know, Frank's a well-known developer in this community. The zoning for this particular project is in place with the conditional use permit that the planning board has approved. So right now we're asking preliminary plat approval for Rivers Edge Park. The planning department and planning board has recommended approval subject to two conditions which are acceptable to us. Mr. Creechy's here with me today. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. Thank you very much.
Are there any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Jerem? Yes. Melton? Yes. Pauls?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
The resolution's adopted 7-0. Mr. President, we'll read up item 15 prior to the pursuant rule I understand there's a request possibly for a layover.
Please.
Item 15 is resolution to approve the preliminary plat entitled MCC Elkhorn Campus, located at 829 North 204th Street. A is Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Mr. President, because I believe a lot more needs to happen before it comes to this body for a decision, some of that being some mediation, I would like to propose a 5-week layover.
Second. Thank you. There's a motion and a second, which would also continue public hearing, right?
Yes.
5 weeks.
We actually would need to lay it over for publication and public hearing.
Yeah, publication.
So moved, and there's a second. Roll call.
Jerem. Yes. Melton. Yes. Pauls.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Pursuant to City Council Rule 70, agenda item number 16 shall be laid over 2 weeks for publication and public hearing. Liquor. Item 17 is the application of Exarban Hospitality Incorporated, DBA Residence Inn, for a Class C liquor license at 1717 South 67th Street.
Public hearing on number 17 is today. Proponents, please. Mr. Kelly.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the council. My name is Sean Kelly, 7134 Pacific Street, appearing on behalf of the applicant. This is the Residence Inn at Exarban Village, and they're already open. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Second.
Mr. Pauls.
Yes. Who is the incorporator of this? Who helped get this?
I don't believe our firm did that. I think they have in-house counsel in Overland Park.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Councilmember Jerem has left the legislative chambers. Melton. Yes. Pauls.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
The application is granted on a 6-0 vote. Item 18 is the application of 9th Street Tavern and Grill, LLC, for a Class C liquor license at 902 Dodge Street, Suite 101.
Public hearing on number 18 is today. Proponents, please.
Mr. President and members of the council, I'm Jim Moylan, 8424 West Center Road, Suite 204, here representing the applicant. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I have a member manager here, too, if you'd like to ask him any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Moylan. Any other proponents today? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Motion approved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Jerem is back in the chamber. Jerem.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
The application is
you.
granted on a 7-0 vote.
Thanks.
Item 19 is NOCA LLC, DBA Night Owl, for a Class I liquor license at 3902 Farnham Street.
Public hearing on number 19 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the council. Sean Kelly, 7134 Pacific, appearing on behalf of the applicant. This is a new restaurant and bar that will be located in the Blackstone Business District. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Gray.
Yeah, Mr. Kelly, did you bring your representative, the other person with you today that's the owner or that's going to be doing the work?
Yeah, both members of the applying corporation.
I read a really great article about the Blackstone. I just want to know what they're going to do to kind of add to it. It sounds like it's going to be a really great project.
Well, no, and Katie Mocker, the proprietors, I'm sure they'd be happy to let you know some more details either now or after the hearing if you like.
Just a few minutes would work.
Okay.
How you doing, Councilman Gray? Blackstone District is a new venture by Jay Lund and Green Street Development and the whole community around Farnham Street. And so my wife and I are opening a restaurant and bar called the Night Owl that's going to be open from 11 till 2 a.m.
Well, that's going to be, Councilmember Jerem gets me around quite a bit to the area, so I'm sure we'll be seeing it at some point.
No, it's a very, very exciting development all the way around, so looking forward to it.
Can we have your name and address just for the record there?
Yeah, sure. Noah Mark and my 3902 Farnham Street.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for investing.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Motion approved.
Second. I would say, too, that I spent Saturday night there with friends in the Blackstone district and was pleasantly surprised when I woke up the next morning and saw the big Omaha World Herald spread and everything that's going on there. It really is making great progress, and it's great to see. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Councilmember
Night all.
Jerem passed the second time. Potential conflict of interest. Item 20 is the application of Five Spice Inc., 2571 South 177th Plaza for an on-sale beer license.
Public hearing on number 20 is today. Are there any proponents?
I'm here to answer questions.
Thank you. And your name, please, for the record?
Hannah. I'm the manager at Five Spice.
Okay.
We're just applying to get a beer liquor license.
Sounds good. And your address, please?
2571 South 177 Plaza. Omaha, yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents today? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Motion approved. Second.
Roll call.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
It's granted on a 7-0 vote. Item 21 is Hy-Vee Inc., 9707 Q Street. Request permission for an addition to their present Class C liquor license.
Public hearing on number 21 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, council members. Scott Slaughter, 3325 Longview Court. On behalf of Hy-Vee, we are expanding and remodeling the store at 97th and Q. So this is just for the new dimensions of the building.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Motion approved.
Second. Roll call.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Approved 7-0. Item 22 is Riviera's Mexican Food Incorporated, 1204749 Blondo Street. Request permission for an addition to their Class C liquor license. You have a communication from planning. If you wish to approve this, it would be contingent upon permits, and you have communications opposing.
Public hearing on number 22 is today. Proponents, please.
Thomas Green, Ganoush & Green Law Offices, 11311 Chicago Circle. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. I want to take a second, just clear up what might be a miscommunication based upon the correspondence in the file. The way this location is set up now, there is very little room for those waiting for a table. And luckily, for the sake of the business, certain nights, Fridays and Saturdays in particular, it's very busy. There's a lot of room, a lot of people waiting. What tends to happen now is they back out and they mill around on the sidewalk in front of the building, waiting for a table to open up. The plan here was to add a little kind of mini deck, for lack of a better phrase, that would be corralled off that they could wait in. So they wouldn't have to wander up and down the shopping center sidewalk, block traffic. They could have a beverage while they wait. They wouldn't be wandering around in the parking lot and so on. So that's the plan. That's what this is intended to do. There isn't going to be any music, neither live nor through some sort of speaker or anything, so we don't anticipate any problems with sound. The people are already there, so this isn't like we're bringing in a whole bunch of extra people. Just rather than have them mill around on the sidewalk, they're going to have a place to go. But I'm here to answer any other questions you might have.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Ms. Melton.
Well, and I'd like to, Mr. Green, if you could just come back up. I just actually wanted to reiterate what Mr. Green just said. I actually do frequently go to Rivera's. It's down the street from my home. It's some of the best Mexican outside of Councilman Gurnett's district. But I would say some of the best Mexican in the city.
Gracias.
But it is true, and we tend to go on Friday and Saturday nights. You can barely walk through because it is a very popular restaurant, and so it's a smaller area, and it is difficult to just even stand and wait for a table. And I think we're especially when we have the kids, we're the ones milling outside the front door because we have the kids and we want to get out of everybody's way. So in response to the objections that we got from two people, I do think there was just a little miscommunication, and they thought that Rivera's was opening a big beer garden with music. So with that, I would ask the council to approve this increase to their addition to the Class C liquor license.
Thank you.
Pardon? Oh, contingent on I think that there were a couple other permits that were necessary.
Correct.
So contingent on getting those permits.
Is motion a second? Roll call.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
It's approved 7-0, contingent on obtaining necessary permits. Item 23 is Peak Interest LLC, DBA Pizza Hut, 13838R Plaza, requesting permission to appoint Brian W. Donica, manager of their present Class I liquor license.
Hi, Brian Donica, 13838 R Plaza, GM of the Pizza Hut. Here to answer any question you guys got.
Thank you. So public hearing on 23 is right now, and Brian is proponent. Are there any other proponents? Seeing none, are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Motion to approve.
Roll call.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton. Pauls.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gurnett. Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
It's approved 7-0.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Item 24 is Roja LLC, DBA Roja Mexican Grill and Margarita Bar, 17010 Wright Plaza, Suite 100, requesting permission to appoint Patrick L. Lynch, manager of their present Class I and catering liquor licenses.
Public hearing on number 24 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Sean Kelly, 7134 Pacific Street, appearing on behalf of the manager application for Roja Mexican Restaurant.
Thank you. Other proponents?
And I'm Patrick Lynch, Assistant General Manager at Roja, address 13130 Larimore Circle.
Thank you. Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Follow up after my last comment.
Got yourself in trouble.
I'm going to have to say, I'll have to say second best Mexican restaurant outside
acceptable.
Councilman Grenad's district.
Everybody's got their own opinion.
Are there any more Mexican restaurants in there?
Sorry, do you love your restaurant too?
Thank you.
You have the best margaritas.
I appreciate that.
How's that?
All right, thank you. Is there a motion?
Motion approved.
Roll call.
Jerem. Melton. Pauls. Pass. Pauls.
Yes.
Thompson. Gurnett. Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Mr. Jerem passed second time due to potential conflict.
Thanks.
Item 25 and 25A, Rolling River LLC, DBA Rolling River, 151 Freedom Park Road. Request permission to appoint Lawrence Larry J. Richling, manager of their present Class C license and Class O boat liquor license.
Public hearing on number 25 is today. Proponents, please. Mr. Richling.
Larry Richling, 1209 Jackson. I'm the owner and operator of the River City Star, and I'm trying to be appointed for both land and sea licenses at the riverboat.
Great. Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Second. Roll call.
Jerem. Melton. Pauls. Thompson. Gurnett. Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Item 26 is a resolution to grant approval to Big Red Satellite Keno, or EHPV Lottery Services for a Big Red Satellite Keno location at Family Corporation, DBA Clubhouse, 3936 North 90th Street.
Public hearing on number 26 is today. Proponents, please. Ms. Coffey.
Mr. President, members of the council, my name is Katrina Coffey. I'm Vice President of Marketing for Big Red Keno. We're located at 11248 John Galt Boulevard. And I have with me today the owner, and we're here to seek the approval for the application for the Clubhouse Lounge.
Thank you. Other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Jerem. Melton. Pauls. Thompson. Gurnett. Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
The resolution is adopted 7-0.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. Any member of the City Council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed therefrom. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the City Council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed unless otherwise taken out of order as otherwise provided by City Council rules of order.
The public hearing on agenda item number 27 was held on August 19th. Is there a motion?
Second.
Roll call.
Jerem. Melton. Pauls. Thompson. Gurnett. Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes. The public hearings on agenda items number 28 and 31 through 38 are today. If you wish to address the City Council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by name, address, who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent. Seeing none, public hearings are closed. Roll call.
Jerem. Melton. Pauls. Thompson. Gurnett. Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
And we'll go to item 29.
Public hearing number 29 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Jerem.
Yes, can I have Mr. Stubbe, the person from your department or your project manager, whoever you're most comfortable with, to talk about this item?
Yes, Bob Stubbe, Public Works. Just some preliminary information. This is a project for replacement of a portion of our South Interceptor force main. Was bid back in May of this year. City staff and our program management team got together and evaluated the bids that were submitted. They're making a recommendation to go with the low bidder super excavator. Kirk Pfeffer is here, design division manager, that can answer some specific questions. We also have Tom Heineman, our program manager, that's here, and I believe there's also some representatives of the contractor that are here in the audience today that can answer your specific questions.
Thank you. Mr. Pfeffer?
Kirk Pfeffer, City of Omaha Public Works.
One of the things that I was doing when the agenda came out, I was scrolling through this particular item, and some obvious huge differences in pricing became very noticeable when I was going through this document and portions of this bid to the tune of millions of dollars, and it triggered my questions. Why would this be? And then lo and behold, the next day or two later, we get a letter from another bidder, Kiewit, who had raised a number of issues as to whether this could possibly be to some misunderstanding and other things that they spelled out in their letter. And that triggered some other questions I had. But basically, before we get into the nitty-gritty, would you tell the members of the public where geographically this particular phase of the South Interceptor replacement project is going?
It's along the levee, approximately along the levee flood wall from about the Bird Izzard pump station, which is just to the east of the convention center, and south to approximately Leavenworth Street.
And as I understand it, because of the Union Pacific Railroad, there's some special challenges in terms of keeping their track operational, as well as dealing with the soil conditions below the surface in that area. Is that correct?
That's true.
And putting aside all the technical engineering mumbo-jumbo, is that the general area of this bid document that's creating the biggest heartburn among the bidders in terms of the pricing?
Yes, that's true.
Okay. So Kiewit points out that they don't believe that it's possible for someone to perform this contract without significantly higher cost for soil stabilization while they're actually performing the work, correct?
That's correct.
What say you and Public Works as to that observation, and what says the contractor?
It depends on the approach that you take. Super Excavators has a lot of experience in this kind of work, working in soft soils. When we first put together the contract documents, we anticipated that it would be necessary to inject grout and stabilize that soil. Super Excavators brought up some potential concerns with creating problems where these tunnels are going underneath the UP Bridge. And then that is what the extent of this is, underneath the UP Railroad Bridge. Potential problems with blowing out the side of their embankment and such. They took a different approach to it based upon their past experience on similar projects, and they are doing a very extensive subsurface investigation to look for obstructions. They're using a slightly different boring machine to create the tunnel, get the tunnel casing in there, and their approach is to look at things from the inside. If there are issues with some obstructions, they have a plan to address that. It's a rough plan at this point, but it'll develop as any types of obstructions are found. But they don't anticipate any, and based upon what UP knows what's there, UP is very comfortable. We met with them to discuss our plan.
In the event that we have an oops moment, that the contractor's incorrect, and the engineers who originally thought this would require the stabilization of those soils to prevent the undermining of the bridge that carries one of the UP's main lines, is the city protected financially to indemnify it and cover the costs of repairing any damage to the UP main line and then performing the boring in a correct manner, assuming this scenario arises?
I would say yes. First off, and this is not their first dance, doing this kind of work. The UP we have a permit with UP, and there are very strenuous, requirements that are placed upon the contractor when they get their permit, as far as insurance requirements and liquidated damages for causing problems to the UP trackage, and ultimately to the point where UP would come in and take over operations to fix any damage to their trackage. With respect to the tunnel itself, you mentioned some numbers that caught your eye, and I believe subsequent to this morning's meeting, everybody was given a copy of the clarification letters from super excavators. And they're very adamant, that was part of the contract, but they're very adamant about the fact that they're not looking to make any windfall profits off this. It is what it is. They're not looking, if there's a problem, they're accepting all the risk with their project.
Including the risk of having to do the grout stabilization work on their dime within the bid price that they submitted.
According to the contract documents, that's the way it would work, okay. Yes. In addition, as we discussed this morning, there is a performance and payment bond equal to the amount of the contract that the contractor has to provide.
And is there somebody here from Super Excavators?
Yes, the Vice President, Jeff Weekly.
Could he come forward?
Good afternoon.
Mr. Weekly, is it?
Correct.
Would you state your name, spell your last name, and your address, please, so that we have the record?
Jeff Weekly, spelled W-E-A-K-L-Y, W327 S755 Timberline Circle, Delafield, Wisconsin.
Mr. Weekly, did you just hear the Mr. Pfeffer explain the Public Works version of events should your opinions as to your ability to perform the work for the bid price specs specified, that if you have to do additional stabilization work, that's covered within the bid?
Yes, it is.
And you'll honor that for the price you bid?
Yes, sir.
In terms of performance, will you self-perform this tunneling or boring, or will you have a sub do it?
We will self-perform the tunneling work. Prior to that, It was stated we're going to do an extensive investigation work to determine if there are, in fact, obstructions, such as old wood piles from a trestle. There was a photo taken from the library dated in 1870 that showed a trestle on grade. Subsequent to that, about a 35-foot high embankment was built over that trestle. No one knows for sure how the trestle was built. It could have been on wood piles. The total depth from the railroad embankment today is 55 feet deep. Quite simply, rather than grouting vertically from adjacent the tracks, we're going to grout horizontally through the shafts on either side of the railroad embankment. We're going to precisely place grout where it needs to be. And in order to do that, there's quite a bit of investigative work we have to do first to determine what's there, if anything.
When will you start if this is approved?
Right away.
To proceed? Okay.
Well, right away on the project, that's one part of the project.
Okay. And give me some comfort that the crew that you're going to use is actually, this isn't their first dance.
Tunneling-wise, we're going to employ a pressurized micro-tunneling machine. It's remotely operated from the surface. It's slurry-based. It's a closed system. There's pressure maintained, constant pressure outside the machine. Water is jetted out. There's cutting tools on the wheel. The wheel turns circularly. And through the use of slurry, constant pressure is maintained on the ground in front of the machine so that there is no soil loss.
And where will the crew be coming from that will be actually performing the work on behalf of super excavators? 2,
possibly 3 key people who operate the equipment will come from us. The remainder of the crew will be hired locally, and we'll train them as we go.
And what is your degree of confidence that you can perform the project as you just said?
Well, these are there's twin runs, 450 feet long. I mean, we've done 94,000 feet of tunnel to this date in the last 12 years using this type of machine. We've had 2 mishaps in the 94,000 feet. One was due to operator error early on. The other one, we hit some steel sheet piling. The machine has so much horsepower and torque that it actually sheared that steel sheet pile and just wrapped it right around the machine to a point where the machine could no longer turn. Other than that, every single one's been successful.
Well, I want to thank you for your explanation. It makes me feel a lot more comfortable, and I think hopefully answers the questions that were raised by the other bidder in terms of your ability to perform. I'm comfortable with that now, and I welcome you to Omaha and wish you luck on the project.
We're looking forward to being here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Pauls.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one more question. First of all, I want to thank you for the letter dated June 12th that we received today. It really did explain your process and how you're saying that you do not intend to claim additional time or money. That's in one statement, but throughout the document, though, I do see where it says you will not. But when you said we do not intend, sometimes that's a little wishy-washy with me. The reason why you can do this at a lower rate, you're telling me, because you're using a unique process compared to the other bidders?
Micro-tunneling business in the United States, in fact in the world, is a very niche business. There's probably 10 companies in the United States who perform that type of work. Kiewit actually has done the same type of work in the past. In fact, they have a world record for length out in Portland 7, 8 years ago. They did that one job and never pursued that niche business since. So,
okay.
So I don't know why.
You're in the right niche then.
Well,
for this project.
Well, you try to be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
No further lights. Motion a second. Roll call.
Jerem? Yes. Melton? Yes. Pauls?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray? Yes. Mr. President?
Yes.
And item 30 is the resolution approving the contract with Graham Construction for OPW 51698, being 36th Street, State Street to McKinley Street Sewer Separation Project.
Public hearing number 30 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. I have a question, I think, for Mr. Stubbe. He's still here. He hasn't taken the rest of the day off
I
yet?
have not taken the rest of the day off. Bob Stubbe, Public Works.
So there's some conversation about this particular contractor this morning and some experiences in previous contracts that caused some angst in the neighborhood and maybe didn't go as well as expected. Can you talk about this project a little bit and assure me why this will be different? This is now in my district up in the Florence area.
Yeah, and the conversation that we had this morning was related to a project in Councilmember Jerem's district, that there was some issues that were that arose with the with that particular project that was done down there. This contractor, subsequently to that project, has performed a project up in the Miller Park area at about a $5.5 million project that has been essentially it's been completed. I don't believe it's been finalized out yet from the contract standpoint, but essentially it's been completed in accordance with the contract documents. And this particular project, $643,000, is a relatively small project in comparison to some of the other ones that he performed. We believe that that based on the performance of the most recent contract, that he has the capability of doing this work also.
And you'll obviously keep a close eye on it, I presume.
Yes, we will.
And it looks to be a pretty simple just replacement of storm sewer or insertion of storm sewer in an unimproved stretch of road, correct?
Yeah, it's a section of 36th Street that will be storm sewer installed.
And it's unimproved road. What happens to the roads after the construction, after the pipe is inserted?
Essentially what we do is, in this particular case, I believe it's outside of the road surface itself, still within the right-of-way, and so normally the area is restored to a condition that would be comparable to what it is today.
Okay. Thank you. No further lights? Second. Roll call.
Councilmember Grays left the legislative chambers. Jerem?
No.
Melton? Pauls? Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett? Did you say no? Mr. President?
Yes.
That loses 3-3.
I believe it was approved 4-2, correct?
I have, Mr. President is yes. I'm sorry.
Yes. So approved 4-2, correct?
I'm busy looking at it. Yeah, it's 4-2. I'm sorry.
All right, thank you.
Give him a heart attack. Resolutions. Item 39, resolution that the City Council does hereby approve the settlement of the case entitled Pierce J. Welsh versus City of Omaha, filed in District Court, Douglas County, Nebraska, in the amount of $90,000 in full and complete satisfaction and settlement of this case.
Public hearing on number 39 is today. Are there any proponents? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Jerem? Melton? Pauls? Thompson? Gurnett? Mr. President?
Yes.
Adopted 6-0. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7F, agenda item numbers 40 and 41 shall be laid over 3 weeks for publication and public hearing. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7E, due to no meeting being held September 2, 2014, the third readings on agenda item numbers 42 through 51 shall be held on September 9, 2014. The public hearings on these items are today. Ordinances on second reading. Item 44 is an ordinance declaring necessity of acquiring for use of the City of Omaha the necessary private property for the purpose of constructing Coal Creek CSO 204 area Phase 1 combined sewer separation city project OPW 51995.
Public hearing on number 42 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
43, ordinance declaring necessity of acquiring for use of the City of Omaha the necessary private property for the purpose of constructing 49th and Caldwell area sewer separation project, city project OPW 52193.
Public hearing on number 43 is today. Are there any proponents? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed. I had one question for Mr. Stubbe or whoever the appropriate Public Works representative is. This is what will become a pretty major combined sewer overflow project in another neighborhood in my district, Country Club, Benson areas, Metcalf, Harrison Park. Metcalf Park and Harrison neighborhoods. So I know we've had some public meetings on this in the neighborhood, and this is just the right-of-way acquisition, but can you give a sense for people who may be watching in these neighborhoods what happens next when this is approved and what those timelines are going to be?
Bob Stubbe, Public Works. We have a representative here from the program management team that I think can kind of go through a little bit as far as the process that we're going through. As you indicated, this is more just acquisition for easements, temporary easements, permanent easements, and some right-of-way that would be needed to do the project. So I'll have Roger Coffey with HDR come up. He's part of the program management team to kind of talk a little bit more in detail.
Great. Thank you, Roger.
Good afternoon, Roger Coffey, for HDR, 8404 Indian Hills Drive, Omaha. The 49th and Caldwell project is what we call an RNC project, or renovation project on existing sewers. Guess I haven't used this before, but
it'll start by itself. There you go.
There we go. This gives general area of the country club area. This project here was the original Country Club Phase 1 project up Saddle Creek Road. This was a Country Club Phase 2 project that was completed here a couple years ago, separation project. The project in question is this area in red down through here and up through north of Saddle Creek Road. Project includes probably about 20 blocks of sewer separation. That's about an $8 million project. We have 90% plans we're reviewing right now. The plan is to advertise that here approximately October and take bids late this year, and then construction would start in that area in the spring next year.
Okay. And with this approval, I guess in 2 weeks, this would allow you to start contacting property owners and acquiring right-of-way and things of that nature.
Right. There's a number of, well, with any project we do, we upgrade the curb ramps and everything in the streets as we go along. Sometimes at the corners of intersections, there's property required to kind of expand those areas a little bit. And then, you know, connections to sometimes encroach in on the property. So they'll be acquiring those easements and edges of property where needed.
Okay. And then once you bid this fall, as you said, and have that company in place, there'll be several more public meetings and engagement, right?
Right. We usually have a construction public meeting before the project starts, introduce the contractor, and let the residents know the timeline. Once we have a good schedule from the contractor, give a better timeline on where they're starting, how long the different areas will take to construct.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Roger. No further lights. Next item.
Item 44 is an ordinance approving the redevelopment and tax increment financing agreement with Alchemy Development, LLC, to implement the Exarban Zone 3 Apartments TIF redevelopment project plan located at South 64th Avenue and Francis Street.
Public hearing on number 44 is today. Proponents, please. Ms. Hadley.
Bridget Hadley, City Planning, here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 45 is ordinance approving the redevelopment and tax increment financing agreement with Midtown Properties, LLC, to implement the state TIF redevelopment project plan located at 528 South 29th Street.
Public hearing on number 45 is today. Proponents, please.
Bridget Hadley, City Planning, here to answer any questions you may have.
Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 46 is an ordinance to approve the acceptance of and authorize disbursement from the fiscal year 2013 Office of Violence Prevention Program from the Nebraska Commission of Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice in the amount of $208,840.
Public hearing on number 46 is today. Are there any proponents? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 47 is an ordinance to approve an agreement with the Domestic Violence Council in the amount of $81,432 with a match of $27,894 provided by the Omaha Police Department.
Public hearing on number 47 is today. Are there any proponents? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 48 is an ordinance approving agreements with Boys Town in the amount of $25,338, Empowerment Network in the amount of $52,000, Heartland Family Services in the amount of $15,114, Home Center for Kids in the amount of $19,875, Release Ministries in the amount of $30,000, and One Community Connection in the amount of $50,373, and to authorize funding for such agreements.
Public hearing on number 48 is today. Are there any proponents? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 49 is an ordinance to approve the acceptance of the Nebraska Crime Commission 2014 Juvenile Services 2013 title grants as listed.
Public hearing on number 49 is today. Are there any proponents? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
50 is an ordinance to approve agreements with the Center for Holistic Development in the amount of $7,500, Completely Kids in the amount of $50,000, Greater Omaha Attendance and Learning Services Center in the amount of $40,400, Hope Center in the amount of $25,800, and the Nebraska Children's Home Society in the amount of $9,023 to provide services and programs to juveniles in Omaha.
Public hearing on number 50 is today. Are there any proponents? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 51 is an ordinance to approve an agreement with Brian M. Boganoff in the amount of $31,200 and to authorize funding of such agreement from the City of Omaha 2013 Violent Gang and Gun Crime Reduction Program.
Public hearing on number 51 is today. Are there any proponents? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Pursuant to City Council Rule 7H, due to no meeting being held September 2, 2014, the second reading and public hearing on agenda item numbers 52 through 56 shall be held on September 9, 2014. On the supplemental agenda, we have item number 61. It's a resolution approving the bid to award to Old Castle Materials Midwest Company, DBA Omni Engineering Company, for major street resurfacing for 2014.
Public hearing on number 61 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Second.
Roll call.
Jerem. Yes. Melton. Yes. Pauls. Yes. Thompson. Yes. Gurnett. Yes. Gray. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 62 is a resolution that between 5 p.m. on Saturday, September 6, 2014 and 10 a.m. on Sunday, September 7, 2014, Hummel Park Nature Center, 3033 Hummel Park Road, shall be open to accommodate the overnight event for the family camping adventure.
Public hearing on number 62 is today. Are there any proponents? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Motion approved.
Second.
Roll call.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Pauls. Thompson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion adjourned.
Roll call.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Pauls. Thompson. Gurnett. Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
413.
Thank you.
From sea to shining sea. Ooh.